Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Jesse Marseille, a podcaster and sales consultant with 10 years of experience who has a solid understanding of the modern sales landscape and converts complex topics into simple, actionable insights that you can immediately implement into your workflow. So, welcome, Jesse.
Hey, thank you so much, Yuri. Happy to be here.
Let's start with the easiest question. For you, what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
The most challenging part is time management.
How do you deal with it?
I used to be a person that had a ton of systems. So I would follow all those productivity gurus that have you block out your calendar with very, very specific times segmented for each specific task. And I would have notifications and a whole system for keeping me on track. Over time, what I realized is the system I created was so complex and required so much work just to run that it was more distracting than it was helpful in focusing me. So I'm very, very simple now. I have some software where I keep my different projects and my tasks and my notes, but I don't spend that much time in there. I spend my time with a to-do list on paper and a timer, a Pomodoro timer, very simple piece of technology that was about $10. And I'll start at the top of the list in the morning. I'll give myself a block of time. The alarm rings when I get to the end of it. And then I move on. And that's it.
What changed since the moment you were building these complex systems and now, in comparison to now when you are using this simple technique?
Yeah. So I had all of those systems because I was doing so many things every week, and I needed systems to track different clients that I was working with. You know, at times I had a full-time job and clients at the same time. And so I needed to keep track of all of the different people and things that they wanted me to keep track of. I made a change in my life where I decided that I didn't want to have this feeling of trying to juggle 20 different things at the same time. And so I started to consolidate the amount of work that I do. And I decided instead of having 10 clients that are all paying me, $1,000 or $2,000 a month, whatever it might be, I would rather have 3 clients that are paying me $10,000 a month. And I've learned over time that high paying clients are generally easier to work with. And it's easier to stay organized when you have fewer people to work with.
It feels like it's harder to find them.
Well, it might be harder to find them, but I've noticed that they are not actually more difficult to sell to. So when I've given discounts, for example, and let's just say I have a service that normally costs $1,000 a month, and someone says, I really like what you do, but it's just a little expensive for me. Can we do it for $700? And I say, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. Those clients that are concerned about the money from the beginning, they're the ones that the most frequently have concerns about how well the work is being done, the timeline that it's being done. They want to check in with you every day. They're sending you text messages. They're calling you. They're FaceTiming you in the middle of dinner, whatever it is. Customers that already have the money up front and are comfortable spending it tend to accept the cost that it requires to solve the problem that they have. And for that reason, they're going to be much easier to work with. So even though it might be harder in the beginning to get those clients, they're the best clients and they stay the longest.
Got it. Yeah, I totally get it, because I feel like it's one of the red flags if people do not jump into the problem itself, into problem solving, but they already talk with you back and forth about money and fight for every piece of dollar. But yeah, so what is the most time consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
It's really easy to lose all of your time to scrolling social media. So that is not a, part of your job really, unless you're like an influencer or something like that. So you have to limit your screen time on social media. It will just ruin your productivity. Now, when it comes to job roles or responsibilities that you have as a freelancer, um, just finding new clients can take a ton of time. And that might be what you have to do. So that's okay. But there are some systems that will make it easier and quicker to find clients.
Some people are reaching out to me exactly at the moment when they're in search of a project instead of doing it prior. So, do you have any kind of system where you look for clients, search for clients before you really need them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so there's the concept of brand building,
Mhm.
which is something you should always be doing as a freelancer. And let's face it, the days of just sending your resume to people are over. People want to see your work and they want to see your brand and understand who you are and what you do with customers before they even talk to you. So having a social media presence, and I would just pick one platform, the platform that's going to be the best optimized for reaching your customers. Just invest in one in the beginning, and build a real brand there. It doesn't mean you have to have 100,000 followers or something like that. You can have a successful brand with a few thousand followers, but they need to be followers that are actually potential customers for you. And that way, as you're working on that brand, as you're posting, as you're engaging, you are developing trust and credibility and interest in what you do, even if you're not making cold calls all day or sending cold emails.
What is your go-to platform?
LinkedIn for sure is where I get almost all of my customers from.
Why?
Because I operate in the B2B space, so most of my customers tend to be startups or established larger companies, and the employees and the buyers in those companies are active and present on LinkedIn in a way that they're not on something like Instagram.
Got it. So, what is the most nerve-wracking thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
So for me, leaving full-time employment, so being an employee, and leaving that consistent paycheck was terrifying. And I've done it multiple times. So in my mid-20s, I was working at a very large health insurance organization, basically, and was making good money, had a lot of security, had great benefits. I quit that to start my own business. That was terrifying. Then I did that again a few years later, and then another time a few years after that. So it's been, multiple runs of being very nervous about starting my own business, but it's absolutely worth it.
But it feels like if you were ending it a few times, so you were coming back to full time. So why did you came back?
Yeah, I mean, my businesses did not succeed on the level of financial results that I wanted them to. And I think that's an important thing for any freelancer or entrepreneur to understand, is that it's very unlikely that you're going to hit a home run and achieve some huge financial success on your very first business model. And that's totally okay. And look, if you're able to do that, God bless you. You're amazingly talented or amazingly lucky or a combination of both. And that's wonderful. It's possible. If you talk to 100 business owners, 90 or more of them are going to tell you it took multiple tries to get to a business model that ultimately brought you the success that you want.
And, it feels like it's something that stopped people from starting again. Because if you, let's say, made a mistake, if something didn't work out from the first time, I hear that freelancers are saying like, oh, freelancing is so hard. It's so hard to find clients. It's so hard to do this stuff. And then I will come back to this usual employment. So how did you do it the second time? How did you do it for the third time? How did you find this motivation inside to do that?
Well, it's not entirely logical. It is not really logical to be an entrepreneur in terms of the risk assessment I mean, if you want to make a good living, be able to support your family, maintaining a long-term corporate job is in a lot of ways a much more secure path to do that. So becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a freelancer is usually not the obvious financial choice. Sometimes it is. So for some people, they might be full employed at a company full time. This was actually the situation I was in. And then I had some consulting clients on the side, and I was going, okay, I get paid, whatever, this much money for my full-time job. My consulting clients are already paying me half of that. So if I just got a few more consulting clients, I would be making just as much. And that's, an easier kind of decision to make when you jump into freelancing. But that's not what it was for all of my businesses that I've started or all of my freelancing. So like for sales consulting, it was very clear how to monetize that. And I already did monetize it before I did it full time. For the podcast, my podcast doesn't really make any money right now. And I didn't even have a super clear picture of how it would make me money exactly. It was a completely emotional decision of just, I know I want to do this. I need to do this for my life story and my personal development. So I don't care if I have to spend into my savings for the next 6 months. I'm just going to do it.
It reminded me of the song of Shakira, Try Everything.
Yes, it's great. We can quote Shakira here on this podcast.
So if your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top 3 things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
I mean, consider all your other options first. So every time I've become a freelancer, it has been inevitable in the sense that I didn't feel like I had a choice anymore. I had to do it, even if it wasn't logical. So for me, the feeling that I get when I know I'm going to start my own company or my own business or freelancing is I feel unemployable. And what I mean by that is like, I can't imagine working for a boss. I can't imagine having my day defined by somebody else. I just can't accept it. And so there's no other option. I have to do my own thing. But there have been times where I've had job opportunities that have been very financially lucrative. I've been able to learn from them. I've been able to be mentored by really talented people. And so there were times where it's like, no, I'm employable right now. Like I'd like to be trained. I would like to have the experience of working in a larger organization. And then after a few years of that, it's like, I think I can do this on my own. So what I would say to anyone who's considering freelancing is like, nobody is going to give you a formula for, hey, this is the time to do it. This is perfect. You're just going to have to recognize that voice in your head that will not shut up. That's just telling you, I have to do this.
So interesting. I just today had a conversation with somebody who told me that they feel unemployable. And I feel like they have to listen to this conversation to understand what to do next. And, Jesse, I wish to have the sky as the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
The first thing that I would do is take my early clients, and this could just be one client, and do a much better job creating a case study for how I helped that client and what results we achieved and what the process looked like. It's very important that you document your first success story extremely well, because that's going to go into your portfolio and that's how you're going to find future clients.
Got it. And how about you now? So do you follow your own advice?
Well, what I'm doing now is split between my sales consulting and the podcast. And for sales consulting, I don't really need more customers. I have enough clients right now. And so yes, I have use cases or case studies rather built out for them, but it's not something I'm focusing on that much because I don't need to grow that side of the business. For the podcast, each podcast episode is a case study. Each podcast episode is my proof of work. So recently I recorded an episode with a veteran a guy that was in the Air Force and served overseas and all of that. And I want to do more podcasts with more veterans. I care about telling their stories. Well, the podcast that I did with Tony, the first veteran that I interviewed, that's my portfolio. So when I go to other veterans and I say, hey, this is a conversation I want to have, I think it's really important to get your message out there. Here's an episode that I did with a fellow veteran. You can check it out and see if this is the kind of podcast you'd like to be a part of.
Got it. Super clear. And yeah, Jesse, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for having this open conversation.
You bet. Thank you so much, Yuri. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.